We finally got our intro to the show, although I have no real idea what the hell is happening in it. It's like it used leftover footage of The Shining. I assume it's about bloodlines, but then it looks like the city that Viserys is building, which is based on Valyria. It looks cool, but I don't think it was as good as the Game of Thrones intro. It was fun with Game of Thrones as they would update the intro to follow the characters, and it always had an iconic look to it. You could recognize what was going on in the different locations. It served as a way of telling audiences where various characters were, and it also looked pretty, so it was great. For this intro, it felt like I needed to watch a breakdown just to find out what it all bloody means. I also don't mind that they used the Game of Thrones theme for the intro either. It's like Star Wars and its opening crawl for me. If it works, there's no real need to change it. Overall, I thought this episode was another solid addition. It continues to build, and by the end of it, I think the path forward is set. We have Viserys announcing he's to wed Alicent, which causes Corlys to fully align himself with Daemon as the crab feeder is on a collision course with the realm. We have Criston Cole elevated to the King's Guard. King Viserys' body is seemingly falling apart piece by piece, and he just accelerated the destruction of his relationship with his daughter. So plenty to unpack in this episode. First off, I want to talk about the visual effects for the show so far. For me, it seems to be a rather mixed bag. I appreciate what they are going for, but some of the shots seem like they're just missing one final pass to get everything together. An example is when Alicent and Rhaenyra are in the Sept praying. Some of the shots just look distracting. They're definitely going for a really cool moody atmosphere, but some of the shots with the actors just don't look right. The background looks flat and not really blended well with the foreground elements. Also, the establishing shot of the Sept looked really bad. It could be the fake camera blur they added to the edge of the frame, but it just looks like a horrible cutscene from a computer game. Compare that to Dragonstone, which looks like a combination of miniatures and CG. That looks absolutely stunning in the establishing shot, and the only really ropey shot is the close-up of Rhaenyra arriving on Dragonback. I let it go with the pilot episode as that's more than likely produced ahead of time before the rest of the season and has its own budget. At the moment though, there's a lot of scenes taking place in the council chambers and enclosed areas around the Red Keep, so maybe they had to cut a few corners here to save up some money for the impending battles to come. Now onto the good stuff. We finally got a glimpse of the crab feeder and they look like nothing we've seen before in Game of Thrones. It's a really fascinating design choice they've gone for with this character, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the actor portrays them. What do they sound like? How do they move? So far he's really eerie looking and I'm looking forward to him getting toasted eventually. There's no way he's going to be able to stand up against Daemon's dragon, right? They better not pull any of this bullshit they pulled with Euron taking down the dragon out of nowhere. And we actually saw some of the crabs feeding on some of these poor prisoners. Brutal stuff and fantastic work by the VFX and I assume the makeup teams. They were really short glimpses, but enough to put a face to the threat and no more alluding. I fully expect there to be some action next week regarding this plotline. The most fascinating character of the show continues to be Daemon, because there's so much to unpack about him. He clearly loves his brother and family, but he's also trying to establish himself as the heir to the throne, but doesn't want to contest that with Rhaenyra. He's in an awkward predicament of trying not to be a pushover, but respecting his family. He seems to want to build a bridge with his brother, but goes about it in the most ridiculous ways. Stealing a dragon egg meant for Balon, who passed away in the previous episode, for his own fake baby, to try and bring Viserys to him for the wedding. He's rebelling against the order of things. He is trying to take a whore for a wife, even though he already has a wife in the Vale, which would make life a little harder for Viserys. If the crown can't keep its word in terms of marriages for alliances, it's not a dynasty that will last long without friends. Even his mistress seemed taken aback by the idea of marriage and children, which paints the picture that Daemon's doing what he can for attention. The show points out that it's been 6 months since the passing of Emma and thus Daemon's exile from King's Landing, so he's certainly getting desperate, which dovetails nicely into Corlys approaching him with a plan to deal with the Crab King. The idea here being that Daemon can win the love of the people and potentially that of his brother by dealing with the Crab King seems really simple, so you know for drama's sake this is going to go horrendously bad or really well for Daemon and Corlys, but makes Viserys look toothless. Speaking of Viserys, if you thought Daemon's attempts to patch things up with family were bad, well it certainly runs in the family. Paddy Considine continues to knock it out of the park. I didn't mention him in the first episode review, but he really does deserve praise. His character gets manipulated left, right and centre, and has no one to trust, and seems to disregard the opinions of those he trusts, and chooses Alicent for a wife over Valerian's offering their 11-year-old daughter. It's absolutely gross through a modern lens, but this shit was rife back in the medieval times.
It would be a great honour to join our houses, as they were in Old Valyria.
Mankind's come a long way for the most part. I do wish that we saw more consideration that Alicent was an option. She sort of comes out of left field at the end. We know it was Otto's plan to get Alicent in the picture, but even Viserys does not seemingly mention her, even if he's trying to keep his meetings with her covert.
You do not mention our talks to Rhaenyra, do you? I fear that she wouldn't understand them.
No.
A lot of it has probably happened off screen, unfortunately, with the 6-month time skip. Maybe it was supposed to surprise the audience. I think it was obvious Alicent was going to be the wife, but it didn't seem earned within the story of the episode. They share a couple of moments, but nothing that screams, yep, he's choosing her as his next wife. And this brings me back to moments happening off screen and the audience finding out afterwards, such as Daemon stealing the egg, Viserys choosing Alicent for his wife. We're missing scenes that would have been great to see rather than hear about them after the fact. Viserys discussing Valerian's daughter with one of his council members, the Maester talking about Valerian's daughter too, but no one mentions Alicent. Otto in his attempt to call the idea of the Valerian's daughter mentions the king has the right to grieve and take his time, even though he's 100% angling for his daughter to force her way through the door. But Daemon's stuff is seemingly a pattern. Last episode we heard how he made a speech mentioning the heir for a day, and in this episode we get him stealing a dragon's egg off screen. If they bloody have him destroying the crab fleet off screen, I'm gonna be super annoyed. The reason I find this so problematic is when I hear of Daemon doing these things, I automatically think it's Otto trying to sow seeds of doubt and cause more trouble and widen the split between Viserys and Daemon, but we instantly get a scene afterwards confirming what was said actually happened. I just would have preferred to have seen these things happen on screen to get a reaction out of the audience and tie it together better. One man who's happy though? My main man Otto, the real MVP of the show. Everything this man does continues to be fascinating. He's both trying to serve the realm and his own interests, and I'm not even sure he doesn't legitimately like Viserys. There's so much going on, and he's a real player in the Game of Thrones. We have to wonder where Rhaenyra goes from here. Does she stick around? She's got very few legitimate allies at court. Even if they did swear allegiance to her, Rhaenys saw it fit to inform her of such earlier on in the episode.
Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne.
There's so much in this show that I could speak about, but I don't want to drag this out further. Shout out to my boy Kristen Cole reminding Daemon on who he is.
Perhaps my prince recalls when I knocked him off his horse.
Very good.
The show's bubbling along nicely and it's definitely building on what's come before, although making one too many similar mistakes, which I hope they iron out in coming episodes.